I was on my hands and knees, scrubbing the marble floor in the executive lobby, when I heard them laughing. Not behind closed doors, not even pretending to whisper, just laughing. "Don't slip on the mop juice," one of them snickered as he stepped around me. "She's always here. Might as well give her a corner office made of bleach." Another joked. "And then, rag lady? That's what we should call her." Please. They didn't know I could hear. Or maybe they did. And they just didn't care. Because to them, I wasn't a person. I was a stain they wanted gone. I felt the burn rise in my cheeks, the sting behind my eyes. But I didn't look up. I just kept scrubbing. Floor tile by tile. Rag by rag. Swallowing every ounce of pride. They walked past me like I was invisible. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that just a few years ago, my mother owned the very company they stood in. She built it from nothing. They took it from her. And now, they laughed at her daughter like I was some faceless janitor. Like I was nobody. But they had no idea who I was. And if they just looked a little closer at the way I watched them, they might have realized I wasn't just cleaning the floor. I was planning something. My name is Elena Rivera. And once upon a time, this place used to feel like home. Before they stole it. Before they stole everything. I grew up in offices that smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh contracts, while other kids played with dolls or game consoles. I was watching my mom run her business like a general runs a battalion. Her name was Carmen Rivera, first-generation immigrant, single mother, and the founder of Rivera Home Care, a commercial cleaning company that started with one mop, a rusty van, and a dream. She built her empire cleaning schools, law firms, and hospitals all over the tri-state area. By the time I was in middle school, she had over 200 employees, most of them women. Many of them immigrants just like her. We weren't rich, but we were proud. She always told me, "Miita, the world won't always see the value in what we do. But we clean with dignity. That's our legacy." Heaven to I used to ride shotgun on her weekend inspections. Clipboard in my lap. Learning what good leadership looked like. Check on your people. Never cut corners. And never forget where you came from. But everything changed when she got sick. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. She tried to keep going. Kept taking meetings from the hospital. But eventually, her body gave out faster than her spirit did. That's when they came in, the men in suits. The strategic partners said they'd help scale the business, take the pressure off. At first, they praised her, called her brilliant, humble, the heart of the brand, Inda. Then they rewrote the ownership contracts, stripped her voting power, diluted her equity, and one day they locked her out of her own system. They offered a buyout, pennies on the dollar. She took it, because she didn't have the energy to fight. She just wanted to survive. But she didn't. Mom died within the year. And when I went to her funeral, not a single one of those partners showed up. No flowers, no card, nothing. But they did send a press release 2 months later, announcing the new vision for the company. New name, new leadership, new logo. They called it Pure Spark Commercial Cleaning now. Same routes, same team, same structure, just stripped of the woman who built it. I left the country not long after. I couldn't breathe here. I studied. I traveled. I built a life away from the ghosts of what they did. But ghosts don't stay buried forever. One morning, 5 years later, I opened an industry news site and saw Marcus Lane, the man who orchestrated my mother's ousting, accepting an award for ethical leadership in business operations. High note. That was the moment. I felt something snap inside me. Not from rage, but from clarity. He stole from her. Lied about it. Humiliated her legacy. And now he was being celebrated? No. No more silence. No more watching from the sidelines. I didn't want to hurt him. I wanted to make him irrelevant. So I changed my name. Shortened it. Applied through a third-party temp agency. I put on a plain uniform. Tied back my hair. And wheeled a mop bucket through the back entrance of Pure Spark Commercial Cleaning. Nobody even looked twice. That's how my mother lost everything. And it's exactly how I would begin to take it all back. The day Marcus Lane walked past me like I was a piece of equipment was the day everything sharpened. It was my second week on the job. My name tag read Ellie. My gloves were worn, and my cart rattled like it was older than the building itself. I was wiping down the glass panels near the elevators when I heard his voice, that same smooth, hollow confidence. The one I remembered from the investor meetings I used to secretly sit in on with my mother when I was a teen. He hadn't changed. Still tall, pressed, rehearsed, except now. He was the one giving orders. The one they all followed. The visionary who had rescued a struggling company and turned it into a case study in scaling. He walked by me without a glance, until one of the junior execs behind him muttered, "Just loud enough. Rag lady's back. Guess we're paying her too much if she's always here." How? They laughed. A short burst. Not at me about me. Because to them, I wasn't a person. I was background noise. I clenched the rag in my hand. Not because of the insult, but because Marcus, who absolutely heard it, smirked. He didn't stop it. He didn't correct them. He just kept walking. Like I deserved the mockery. That moment would have been enough for some people to walk away. Not me. Later that night, I was cleaning Conference Room C, a glass box with polished chrome fixtures and thick carpet you could sink into. The lights were dim. The building mostly empty. Except it wasn't. I heard voices. Laughter. Then the unmistakable shuffle of chairs and the clink of glasses. I froze behind the frosted glass wall and listened. Marcus was inside, along with two other execs, Jenna from HR, and a man I didn't recognize, probably one of the new compliance officers. They were talking about budget cuts. Again? Except this time, they weren't whispering. They won't even notice. Marcus said, swirling his whiskey. The cleaning crew barely speaks English. Just cut hours and tell them it's seasonal. And won't that trigger a complaint? Jenna asked. We make sure the new contracts are vague. He said. Ambiguous language. Low risk. Low IQ workforce. And they all laughed. That laugh hit deeper than any insult, because it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone. About Rosa, who worked double shifts to send money to her parents in Honduras. About Darnell, who showed up an hour early every day just so no one could ever call him lazy. About every single person in this building who made it run, and got nothing but crumbs and jokes in return. I pressed my hand against the glass, felt it shake a little. My breath caught, but not from panic, from purpose, because in that moment, I stopped being the daughter in mourning and became the storm they couldn't see coming. After that night, I started showing up even earlier, not because I needed the hours, but because I needed the silence. That was when the truth revealed itself in whispers, in paper trails, in the discarded outlines of power. I became part of the furniture. The shadow, the woman pushing the cart no one made eye contact with, the one they'd keep talking in front of, even when their words were knives. And so I listened, quietly, every day, every shift, every hallway. I started keeping a small notebook inside the hollow base of my cart, hidden beneath the disinfectant spray bottles. I'd write everything down after they walked away: dates, times, names, conversations, the jokes, the cruelty. There was a routine to it all. They always gossiped around 9:45 a.m. in the break room. They made their private calls near the third-floor stairwell. The conference calls? Always on speaker. Because why not? Who was listening? I was. I watched Marcus sign invoices for consultants who never stepped foot in the building. I watched Jenna restructure the benefits plan in a way that cut costs but left single parents paying hundreds more a month for the same healthcare coverage. And I saw the janitorial team shrinking. One by one. First Anna, then Raj, then Tomas. Performance issues, they said. But we all knew better. They were trimming labor costs before end-of-year reports. The staff meetings got colder. People started walking with their heads down, smiling less, eating lunch alone. You could feel the fear settling in the air like bleach fumes. And all the while, Marcus walked through it like a man on top of the world. At night, I'd help Rosa carry trash bags down 3 flights of stairs. The freight elevator wasn't available for cleaners. Rosa had a bad knee. She never complained. "I'm lucky to have this job," she said one night. It broke my heart to hear that, because this wasn't luck. This was exploitation dressed up in a company polo shirt. I started learning who was hurting the most. I listened to their stories while we emptied bins and wiped down desks no one ever said thank you for. Carlos had 2 jobs and still couldn't afford his son's asthma medication. Maria hadn't had a full weekend off in over a year. These people weren't lazy. They were loyal. They worked harder than anyone in the executive suites, but they were treated like burdens. I was collecting more than evidence. I was collecting fuel. And I never let my anger show. Because revenge isn't loud. It's calculated. It's cold. It's built one humiliating day at a time. Every insult, every joke, every rag lady whisper in the hallway, I folded it all up like laundry and stored it in the quietest part of myself. I let them think I was nothing. That I had no power. And all the while, I was standing in the center of their empire, learning exactly how to bring it to its knees. They saw me emptying trash cans, wiping coffee rings off their desks, and restocking paper towels like some invisible gear in a machine. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't see, was the woman underneath the uniform. I had taken on the role of Ellie the janitor. Yes, but in the quiet corners of that building, I was still Elena Rivera, and I was trained for war. What they didn't know is that when my mother lost her company, I didn't just disappear out of grief. I went to Spain for a while, then Boston, then D.C. I enrolled in one of the top MBA programs in the country, studied business law, operations strategy, and forensic accounting. I consulted for firms that specialized in hostile takeovers and corporate turnarounds. I learned how the powerful fall and how the clever rise quietly behind them. By the time I stepped into Pure Spark as a janitor, I already had a plan. And more importantly, I had leverage. Through shell corporations and legal trust instruments, I began quietly purchasing fractional equity from former vendors and shareholders, people who still held small, neglected stakes in the company they thought was doomed. They were glad to offload them. Dead weight, some said. I smiled and nodded, never revealing my name. Within 8 months, I had accumulated 11.7% of Pure Spark's private equity. Enough to get on the radar. Not enough to raise alarms. I also secured power of attorney agreements with former employees who had been silenced or forced out. Dozens of them. They trusted Minot because I said the right things, but because I listened when no one else ever had. At night, I cleaned floors. During the day, I worked out of a shared co-working space under a different name. Emails, calls, legal filings, positioning. By the end of my first year inside, I had turned my mother's ghost into a legal weapon. But I wasn't just building a case. I was building options. Because revenge isn't always about fire. Sometimes it's about control. It's about knowing that when the boardroom doors fly open, you're already sitting at the table. They called me Rag Lady. They thought they were looking down on someone beneath them. But what they didn't know was that every time I bowed my head to scrub the floor, I was hiding a smirk, because I had already mapped every weakness in their foundation. They didn't know it yet, but their days were numbered, and I didn't need to raise my voice. I just needed to bide my time. Some people collect trophy. I collected proof. Not rage, not rumors, not emotion. Evidence? It started small. I installed a hidden mic on the underside of my cleaning cart. Nothing high tech. Just a $40 audio recorder from an electronics store. I only turned it on when they were in the room, especially Marcus. And they talked. God. They talked about slashing wages, faking quarterly numbers, firing single parents under performance clauses that didn't even exist in the handbook. They never noticed me standing 6 feet away, dusting their ego off the glass partitions. Then came the files. Every night, I'd accidentally tidy up a desk after hours, and if someone left their laptop open, I took pictures. If there was a printed report on a chair, I scanned it on my phone. If they logged into the shared drive and left it open, I copied what I needed onto a flash drive hidden in my sock. I had spreadsheets of ghost invoices, vendors that didn't exist, and fake consulting fees being funneled into LLCs with names like Blue Kite Management and Novascope Inc. Ender Tem. All Marcus. He was hiding hundreds of thousands in bogus expenses routed back into his own accounts through dummy companies. And he wasn't subtle about it. Why should he be? No one was watching. Except me. I hired a whistleblower attorney under a different name, spoke to her from a burner phone on my lunch breaks. She confirmed what I suspected, multiple federal violations. Es fraud. Labor abuse. Wire fraud. But I wasn't ready to go public. Not yet. I needed to go deeper. So I started talking to the janitors, not just the current ones, but the ones who'd been forced out. I found them on Facebook, Instagram, community bulletin boards. I bought coffee. I listened. And I asked for their stories. The things they told me? Firing a woman while she was recovering from surgery. Cutting hours for a man after he asked for mental health days. Supervisors demanding unpaid overtime. Then writing them up for lateness if they left early to pick up their kids. I compiled it all. Audio. Photos. Signed affidavits. I built a case that was no longer just about me or my mother. It was about a culture of abuse built on stolen labor, and a man at the top who smiled for magazine covers while stepping on the necks of the very people cleaning his office. And then, just when I thought I'd seen the worst, I found the document that changed everything. It was a scanned PDF left on a printer tray in the executive wing. Marcus had marked it up by hand. It was a proposed acquisition plan to sell Pure Spark to a larger holding company, under the condition that the entire cleaning staff be outsourced to a third-party firm overseas. No severance. No transfer offers. Just cut. They were going to gut the backbone of the company and call it streamlining. That's when I knew. I had waited long enough. I didn't just want to expose them. I wanted to make sure they could never do this to anyone again. They held the annual shareholders meeting at a hotel ballroom downtown. Classy, cold, controlled. The kind of place with champagne before noon and smiles that never reach the eyes. It was the one day every year when Pure Spark's executives had to pretend to care about the people who owned pieces of the company. The ones who nodded through PowerPoints and clapped at buzzwords like efficiency and growth strategy. This year, though, the guest list was a little different, because this time, I had a seat, not as a janitor, not as a shadow, but as the second largest private stakeholder in the company. I walked in wearing a black suit. Tailored. Clean. Hair up. Not a strand out of place. A small silver pin on my lapel, my mother's initials, etched into a circle of obsidian. No mop, no gloves, just a folder. I sat in the back, watched Marcus take the stage with his usual charisma. He clicked through slides, spoke of record profit margins, laughed when someone brought up staffing concerns, smoothed it all over. Pure Spark, he said, is leaner, stronger, and ready to lead the industry. I stood up. At first, no one noticed. Then the moderator paused, clearly confused. I walked down the center aisle, folder in hand. Excuse me, I said, voice calm, steady. Before we move to vote, I'd like to address the room. As a shareholder, Marcus's smile faltered just slightly. You are Elena Rivera, I said, evenly, daughter of Carmen Rivera, founder of the company you now stand in. Oh, the room went still. You could hear the air change. I stepped to the front, placed the folder on the podium, opened it. I've spent the past 18 months inside this company not as an executive, not as a consultant, but as a janitor, watching, listening, documenting. Oh, I held up photos, emails, charts, audio clips. I clicked the remote, and a projector behind me lit up with slide after slide, time-stamped invoices. Payroll manipulation. The acquisition document that would outsource 60 jobs overnight. People gasped. Some murmured it. A few stood up. Your so-called growth, I said, has come at the expense of your people. My mother built this company from nothing. You stole it, repackaged it, and exploited every person who made it run. And I turned to the board. I am invoking a shareholder clause under Article 7, Section 3, and with my current voting bloc and legal standing, I am calling for a formal no-confidence vote in this executive team. And that's when the panic set in. Marcus tried to laugh it off. This is ridiculous, she's a disgruntled legacy. You're going to listen to a janitor. No? I said, facing the room. You're going to listen to the truth. And I handed out copies of whistleblower filings, letters from former employees, a signed petition of support from 43 current staff members. And then I said nothing else. I didn't need to. The board voted within the hour. Marcus was out. So were Jenna and the CFO. 3 executives. Gone. The next day, headlines ran wild. Daughter of founder ousts corrupt execs at Pure Spark shareholder showdown. Former janitor exposes $1 million fraud inside cleaning empire. But I wasn't interested in headlines. I was interested in justice. Marcus Lane didn't pack his things himself. He didn't walk out with dignity. He didn't get a standing ovation or a farewell cake or even a handshake from the board. He was escorted out quietly, efficiently by 2 private security contractors hired just for the day. That's how it works when you've committed wire fraud, falsified financial statements, and abused your position of power for personal gain. His company card? Frozen. His cloud accounts? Locked. His legacy? Erased. Scrubbed out of Pure Spark's official site by noon the next day. Jenna from HR wasn't far behind. She tried to lawyer up, tried to spin it as miscommunication, but she had signed off on too many of the manipulated contracts. Too many revised employment handbooks that violated federal labor law. She walked out with her mouth tight and her reputation shredded. The CFO resigned before the vote even concluded. The financial misconduct attached to his name would follow him into every job interview for the rest of his life. But the real punishment? It wasn't public disgrace. It wasn't the audits. It was knowing that the people they dismissed, the cleaners, the receptionists, the overnight crews now stood taller than they ever had. That I stood taller than I ever had. The Department of Labor launched an official investigation based on the evidence I handed over. Several victims were compensated. Others received settlements. And Marcus? He was under IRS audit by the end of the quarter. But none of that compared to what happened inside the company. The fear? Gone. People began to speak up in meetings. The cleaning staff stopped whispering and started walking like they belonged in the building because they did. Promotions started happening from within. No more shady outsourcing. No more silent layoffs. And most importantly, we scrubbed away the shame. The shame they had draped over hard-working people like a dirty uniform. I brought in new HR leadership. People who had actually cleaned before. People who understood what it meant to mop a floor for 8 hours and still hold your head up. We reinstated full benefits for all hourly staff. Created a transparent bonus structure. And I made sure that every department had one representative from the janitorial or operations team at quarterly strategy meetings. Because the people closest to the ground see everything. We even renamed the employee lounge Carmen's Corner. Painted it yellow, her favorite color, and filled it with plants, books, and soft chairs. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. About restoring a soul to something that had been hollowed out by greed. They thought they had taken the company from my mother. But they never understood they only took the name. The heart? The spirit? The why? That was always mine to carry forward. And now? Every time I walk those halls, not in uniform, not pushing a cart, but as the woman with the key to every door, I remember the day they laughed at me. And I remember the sound of their silence when they realized the janitor had become their reckoning. Some people think power is about the corner office, the parking spot, the salary, but they're wrong. Real power is when people trust you, when they choose to follow you not because they fear you, but because they remember what you did when you had every reason to give up, and didn't. That's where I stand now. Not above anyone. Among them, after the vote, the scandal, the purge, pure spark could have folded. Investors panicked. Clients started calling. Staff didn't know what would happen next. So I showed up. Not in a press conference. Not with a corporate PR team behind me. I showed up at 6:30 a.m. with a tray of coffee and pan dulce in the break room. I sat with the cleaners, with the schedulers, with Rosa and Carlos and everyone who had held this company up while the execs used it as a ladder for their egos. I said, "We're rebuilding. Together." I made one promise, that the people who actually worked would finally be the ones with a voice, and I kept it. We created a worker advisory council, 12 employees from all levels, elected by their peers. No managers allowed. They sit with me monthly. Every suggestion, every grievance, every insight, it goes on the record. And action follows. I reinstated everyone who was wrongfully terminated. Not all of them wanted to return, some had found peace elsewhere. But those who did, they came back with a new fire in their eyes. And I watched something even more powerful than revenge happen. Restoration. Darnell, who once cleaned floors in silence, now manages logistics for 3 states. Rosa runs onboarding and training for new hires. She even redesigned the company handbook this time, with dignity in every line. I didn't want to be just CEO. I wanted to build the kind of company my mother had dreamed of before the suits, the silence, the sellout. So we changed the name again. We brought back Rivera Commercial Services not as a memorial, but as a statement. We remember who built this. Revenue? Up 36% year over year. Turnover? Down by more than half. Client satisfaction? Highest it's ever been. But what I care about most, when I walk through the building now, people look up. They say good morning. They smile. They stop me in the hall, not with fear, but with pride. We celebrate Carmen Day every the 3rd of December, the day she registered the original business license. It's a paid holiday for every employee. And we spend it volunteering in our communities, cleaning schools, painting shelters, delivering meals. We've grown. We're thriving. But we haven't forgotten, because the goal was never just to win, it was to heal. I used to dream of making Marcus and the others feel what we felt: small, invisible, disposable. But now I just want them to watch, to see what real leadership looks like, to understand that no amount of money or branding or fake smiles can replace the soul of a company built on respect. And if they're paying attention, they'll realize the woman they once mocked as Rag Lady has become the one thing they never expected: unstoppable. Sometimes, the most powerful voice in the room is the one that waited the longest to speak. I spent years swallowing every insult, every joke, every moment they looked past me like I was less than nothing. I let them believe I had no power, because I knew the moment they saw me as a threat, the game would be over. Instead, I let them reveal themselves, piece by piece, lie by lie. And when the time came, I didn't raise my voice. I raised the truth. Because real revenge isn't about shouting louder. It's about knowing who you are even when no one else does. It's about taking the pain they gave you and turning it into purpose. If you've ever been mocked for where you came from, underestimated because of what you wear, ignored because of your accent, your name, your job, let them laugh. Let them doubt. Just don't let them define you. Because someday, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you will walk back into that same room. Not to prove anything, but to show them what quiet power really looks like. And when you do, you won't need to remind them who you are. They'll already know,